So, I picked up a game that I reckon we can do for the first episode of the show for this new Shut Up and Sit Down.
Oh, that's fantastic. Which one?
It's called Through the Ages. It's supposed to be a classic. I'm gonna take it home and try it now.
Oh, well, that's great. Let me know how it is. We'll put it in the first episode together with Memoir 44 and Citadels. So, how did it go?
It's going fine, it's going well. We've done about 50 turns so far. And I'm just gonna get some food before everything closes. Could we do it maybe for just the next episode, just next episode 2? How is that?
Well, I mean, if it's big enough, we could even do a whole episode special about it for our second episode. I was thinking we could do Descent, but maybe we could do Through the Ages instead.
Hello?
Hey, Paul, the P-Man, the dude who works with me. Listen, I was thinking we could review either City of Ruins or Through the Ages this week. Also, it's been 2 years, so well, I don't know what are you doing?
City, yep, or Sentinels of the Multiverse. I have to go. I have to move some cubes around. A lot of cubes. Bye.
Hey, Paul, how's it going?
Quentin?
Picked up the new edition of Through the Ages. I thought maybe we could do a review.
Quentin, no!
No, you mustn't! No! Hello! My name's Paul Dean, and I've been playing Through the Ages. As such, I have now witnessed the entire span of human history, from the earliest days of antiquity to the very latest innovations of the modern era. I have seen it all, and after digesting every moment of human existence, time no longer has any meaning to me. And you know what? I'm actually surprised that Shut Up and Sit Down didn't get to Through the Ages sooner. This latest and by far best looking edition of the game is actually the result of 10 years worth of honing and tweaking of a game that's already been very popular for a long time with a lot of people. If you look up Through the Ages on Board Game Geek, which is arguably the internet's best database of all board games that have ever existed ever, it's amongst the top 10 board games. Twice, because this latest incarnation is rated in there along with the original version from like 2006 or 2005 or whatever. It's in the top 10 twice. That's nuts. It's in my mouth. And it's a Vlada game. It's a game by one of our very, very most favourite designers ever. A designer who's produced a host of excellent board games with all kinds of different ideas and themes and mechanics. Games as diverse as Galaxy Trucker and Codenames and Bunny Moose. How could you not be excited to try this? I certainly was. Ooh. And it's big. I mean, it's large, or it's certainly dense at least. Being mostly a card game, it's lots and lots of cards. Although there's also these kind of awkwardly oversized, don't need to be this big boards for tracking certain things. It's mostly a lot of cards that cover all of history and kind of everything that's ever been in history, or certainly as much as they can possibly squeeze into a game. I'm talking things like famous historical figures like Aristotle and Joan of Arc, or ideas like drama or journalism or the printing press, or historic structures like the Great Wall or the Eiffel Tower, or the internet. And online dating is probably in here somewhere in one of these many decks of hundreds, thousands of cards. How many cards? I really want to know this now. Here's how history works. You've got this single sort of faux marble cardboard track that sits probably somewhere in the center of your table, and you have cards constantly cascading down it, representing the waterfall of time or something like that, all of which are certain ideas, certain concepts, inventions. Players buy cards off the track, which are always becoming cheaper the further down they go. But every turn, whatever's left at the end of the track, if there's anything in a certain number of the end spaces, depending on the number of players, they just go away. They just vanish. So depending upon how your game goes, sometimes you just won't have pyramids ever. No one will ever have any pyramids or any theology, or no one will ever think of the idea of getting on top of a horse or something like that. All of these cards are numbered according to age, which is a very rough approximate of sort of a period of time, and some of them are actually weirdly broadly approximate. But as soon as one of these ages ends and all the cards are being played, the next age comes in, and then things get slightly more modern, and you might start thinking about Charlie Chaplin or something like that, and he'll cascade down time and you can buy Charlie Chaplin or not. Most of those cards will then wing their way over to your player board, where they'll be added to it or they'll be put next to it and be complementing it in some way. Look, for example, here, I'm now coal mining. I've actually improved my mines, which were previously iron, which is fine. It's not bad, it's fine. It's now coal, which is a lot better. Or Isaac Newton will just sit next to my board and make everybody a bit smarter, which I need right now. You may have seen cubes, yeah. So here's the thing. This player board is absolutely garnished with cubes. Can you be absolutely garnished? You can be absolutely garnished in this game. Through the Ages is a card game. It's definitely a game that has cards, sort of, but really it's a game of cubes. It's a game of so many cubes, just economies based around dozens of cubes. Here's how the cubes work. Cube cam, I hope you like cubes, because you're going to be shuffling them all over your board for the rest of game until the end of human civilization. Yellow cubes are basically, they're workers, they're people, or in this yellow bank right now, they're potential people, so they're embryos. Anyway, you pay food and they pop out of here and into the worker pool, where you actually find things for them to do. Do you need more resources? Well, you can send somebody mining. Do you need to be cleverer? Do you need more technology points to actually play more technologies? Well, it's fine. Put somebody into a brains building, or maybe assign them to the army if you want to be a particularly stabby player. Thing is, as this bank gradually declines, your population's getting bigger, it's getting denser, so hopefully you're keeping up with that by employing people in things that cause happiness, like temples here or the opera. Or I've actually got a basilica here, which is nice. I don't have to put a person in that, and it just makes everyone happy, like all basilicas do everywhere. These are, they're basically your population, they're people, they're workers. They represent activities happening within your civilization. Particularly, they're important here and here because they are making things. They're making resources that are food or generic stuff, whether this is bronze, iron, or coal, or whatever it ends up being. Your blue bank is all of these resources before they exist. Gradually, these will trickle onto whatever they become, like bronze, food of different types, resources of different types. But the thing is, as this bank declines, you run the risk of corruption. That's what that stands for, which is a mechanic that stops you from stockpiling too many resources, particularly early in the game. It represents kind of political corruption, but also just inefficiency, where if you have a lot of resources laying around like this, oh my goodness, -4 corruption, 4 cubes go back to the bank, because if you don't plow these into the foundations of something that you're building, they sort of just disappear. Government! This is your government here. At the moment I've got a monarchy, which is the best type of government, obviously. Your government gives you a certain number of white cubes, which are civil actions, which are basically the things that you do on your turn. Are you assigning a worker from the pool somewhere? It's a civil action. Are you buying a card from the track? Well, that could be a few civil actions depending upon how far up the track it is. Are you reassigning workers? Are you playing a leader? Are you playing some kind of special... Oh, where are they? Yellow card that gives you a one-time bonus. That's a civil action. The more of these you have, the better the government you have, the more stuff you can do on your turn. So this is really important. And then there's military actions. Maybe you're building a military unit. Well, that's actually a red military action. Or maybe you're even employing some kind of new tactic. That's a red military action. Or doing something aggressive. That's a red military action. Clearly, you need to be constantly thinking about your next form of government, what you can employ next, how you can be more efficient, so that on your turn, you're a powerhouse of things, powerhouse of cubes. And do you want to perform all those military actions? Do you want to assemble a half-decent army like I'm starting to do here and go to war? Well, you probably do actually, because all of this card collecting and efficiency and economy maximization is actually a bit of a lonely responsibility. You can't play through the ages as a non-aggressive game without military at all, but basically it's kind of a solo experience of just maximizing things. I mean, sure, you can be you can be grabbing cards from the track to try and deny your opponent's things, but in a 4-player game particularly, you don't have a huge amount of control over that, and by the time turn comes back round to you again, you won't have anything much to do. So having an army like this and then sending it out to attack people actually gives you a chance to really properly interact with the other players in a way that otherwise just won't really happen. You get to declare war or have pacts or raid people for technology or to kill their leaders or even steal their culture. Oh, culture, of course, and that's the whole point of all of this game that you're playing, is to get culture. Nothing else actually really matters unless it helps you along the way to that. All of these splendid leaders and technologies and technology points that you get to enable you to employ new technologies, it's fine, it's great, but ultimately it's got to score you culture points, and only some buildings do that, only some people do that, only very specific things give you culture, and that's what you're going to be judged by. There's no prize for second place in history. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, why, you know, that doesn't make any sense. But within the context of the game, it does.
Whew, and I'll say it again, there's a lot of cards here going to be coming up all the time through the game, and gradually as the game goes on and your civilization gradually gets grander and more complex, you find your hands get larger, which is determined by your civil cube limit, and then you get more powerful leaders that start to bounce off either some of the structures you have or even some of the yellow cards that you have. If you're very shrewd, you can chain certain cards together. Certain leaders work quite well with particular buildings. And as you can probably guess, everything just starts to get bigger. The numbers get bigger, the cards get bigger, the amount of science gets bigger, the culture gets bigger. You go up this military track, everything gets bigger. And particularly military stuff gets a lot bigger. And the thing is, much as I want to encourage you to play with your military stuff and your tanks and your rockets and your planes and all of this, the military side of the game is also sort of the most broken, in that there's no easy way to catch up once you're behind, and it's in everybody's interest to always pick on the weakest player because it gives them benefits. There are a few yellow cards that if you're lucky enough to grab them, they give you certain bonuses. They give bonuses to players who are behind or who are doing the worst. There's not actually that many of them in the game. The game generally doesn't really have catch-up mechanics for anything. But if I like one thing about the military side of stuff, I like a few things, but if I like one thing apart from
these tactics you can employ and these interesting political events that definitely shake stuff up. It's just that the board is the best designed and it's the smallest board. You've got this little military board that just, it goes anywhere. The other boards are just, they're too long. They're stupidly too long and they awkwardly take up space in a way that I just don't like. It's really inelegant. But here's a thing that actually I forgot to mention enough, that I've hinted at enough, but let me just be blatant about this. On the box for Through the Ages, it says Playtime 120 human minutes plus. It might be a bit longer. I thought I was going insane when I was playing games of this that lasted 5 or 6 hours. Then I went on the internet, which is good, you should check it out, looked at what other people were saying, and it was not uncommon for people to say, well, you know, it's about an hour per player plus maybe an extra hour, so 4-player game might be 5 hours, could be 6 hours if you're all new. 3-player game might be 4 or 5 hours. It's not unreasonable, especially if you're very thoughtful. Yeah. Yep. That's gonna happen when you play Through the Ages. It is the second longest game I've ever played for Shut Up and Sit Down, behind Twilight Imperium. It has dominated the last 2 weeks of my life. Entire evenings, days lost to just playing games, sometimes just one game of this to see how it is with this many players, or if I put this thing into it. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but oh my god, I was not ready for that. Across all this span of history, across all this playtime that you invest in Through the Ages, the game doesn't feel hugely different at the end to how it does at the start. You're still mostly doing the same things with your economy, you're still playing in the same way. It's a game that sort of gets to a certain level and just hums along. The only thing that changes is, of course, as you reach the modern era and you get more exciting technologies and ideas, is the numbers get bigger. And that's kind of it. And this is a game, you know, with all this card shuffling, this is a game with a fair amount of randomness in. You don't know when certain cards are going to appear and whether you will ever be able to claim them, particularly if there's like 3 other people who are going to go before you two and the card track completely changes, or the random events just happen to hurt you. Random political events just don't fall in your favor, and then if you're falling behind and you don't have a way to quickly catch up, it's just, you can really be screwed. You can really seriously be screwed by history in a sort of guns, germs and steel kind of way, where just complete fortune happens to privilege you rather than someone else. Is privilege a verb? To its credit though, Through the Ages can actually remain quite engrossing for all of that time, because you are always thinking about efficiency and economy and the very best way to do a particular thing. Oh no. But you know what? You know what bugs me the most about Through the Ages is it's not great. It's interesting. It has a lot of cool stuff in it. After the end of your first game, you will have seen pretty much everything the game has to offer. It will be different the next time that you play, but there won't really be any surprises. It's not one of the 10 best games that have ever existed. It's certainly not 2 of the 10 best games that have ever existed. And I joke a bit about the playtime because that's never really that much of a consideration in a game. I don't mind being engrossed in something for 4 or 5 hours. I've had some really fun games of this. But also, for that same amount of time, I think I would rather play that Twilight Imperium game, or get into a Descent or Imperial Assault game, or really dig my teeth into a long, involving, complex game of Caverna. So, can Shut Up and Sit Down recommend Through the Ages? No, not really. It's fairly good. It's good. It's interesting, engrossing, big. Maybe that's really your kind of thing. It's an acquired taste is the thing. And there are some players out there who will absolutely adore how big this is and how much there is in here. And that's absolutely fine. In fact, that's more than fine. That's fantastic. There are other players who are going to bounce off this and never be interested. And the thing is, I just feel like
I straddle the line between those two groups of people. I can see both sides of the thing. And I just can't recommend this enough. I feel like I've been through an experience and I don't know. Sorry, hold on. After everything that's happened. Quins?
Paul, yeah, listen, I'm a bit worried. This is a Vlada game, you know? This is Vlada. I don't want you releasing a bad review. Look, we all work hard. Maybe you've just worked a little too hard. I'm sure it's really good.
What? No, I'm fine.
Look, just don't release your video, okay? Don't release it. What'll happen is Matt and I can play the game this weekend, and then, you know, we'll probably release a video of our own instead of yours. How about?
No, you can't do that. No.
Listen, I actually already gave the code of laws to Matt. He says it looks really interesting.
Quins, no!
I remember when I first started playing this game. I was just a boy. Back then it only cost 10 pence for a cup of tea, and you got a biscuit, and leave the back doors of our houses unlocked, and we'd share each other's dogs when you wanted to go on a walk. Can you make me a cup of tea? Quincy, darling. Dear? Quentin? Oh, he's gone. Oh.
MY44 and Citadels. You get that? Yep. You want to just give Paul a look at your face one more? That's it. No, that's it. That's it. We're over. We're done.
Hello, Paul.
And it's a Vlada game. It's a game by one of a... That was a box fart. It was a really distracting box fart. And it's a... And... Oh my God. Oh. Why?
That's all I got. That's all I got in the perfect order.
No. Anyway, here's Wonderwall.